not as the graph, the name of the graph. We're looking at the first one, and it says that this graph is G. So I'm going to label this graph G. This is the G graph right now, guys. That's what this blue one says right here. So we're going to create a G prime x-axis right here. This is for G prime, all right? And so if we're doing that, and we're trying to create a sine line graph for it, what you want are the critical values. Now, what are the critical values for this G function? Stop for a minute. Look at the graph. Where would the critical values be? And if you knew that the critical values would be where the tangent lines are horizontal, you were correct. Because right here and right here have points where the slope equals 0. So G prime equals 0 at x equals -3 and -1. And so that's going to be where my intervals are. Okay, so if we're creating a sine line graph, what you have to do next is you have to decide whether or not G prime is positive or negative in this interval. Is it positive or negative in this interval and then this interval? So let's look at this interval right here. Look at that, look at that, look at that. Is the G prime positive or negative right here? Ooh, it's totally positive. Okay, look at this graph right here. Is the G prime positive or negative here? Negative. It is negative, and then finally positive. Okay, hopefully that makes sense to you. The pink one comes along and says, no, it's not G. This is F. It says create a F prime sine line graph if the function to the left is F prime. So now we have an x-axis, but it's for F prime. Okay, and this is, well, that other one was for G prime. This one's for F prime. But now the graph is F prime. Oh, snap. Okay, so if that's F prime, where are the critical values now? Where does F prime equal 0? Man, I hope you so badly you guys are paying attention right now. Where does F prime equal 0? It equals 0 at -3, at x equals -3 and 0. So you look at the x-intercepts. Okay, you guys still with me? Still with me? Okay, now I go -3 right here. I go 0 right here. And this one is actually even more simple. We're below the x-axis here, so we're negative. And this one right here, we're below the x-axis, so we're negative. And then we're finally above the x-axis, so we're positive. If your sine line graphs match mine, then you were able to not let your brain get all twisted up and read it to understand it and be able to do it. Okay? Guys, here, let me ask another question. Which one of these prompts, the blue one or the pink one, which one of these prompts, the blue one or the pink one, are you asking yourself the question, are you above the x-axis or below the x-axis? Tell your neighbors, go. The other question, to make the sine line graph, the other prompt, you wouldn't be asking yourself that question. You would instead be asking, where is this graph increasing or decreasing? Which prompt are you asking, where is this graph increasing or decreasing? Is it the blue one or the pink one? Tell your neighbors. These are them. These are the main questions here. Okay? The pink one is asking, where are you above or below the x-axis? And the blue one, you're asking yourself, where is the graph increasing or decreasing? And that is what determines your signs. Okay? For the pink one, it's wherever you're above the x-axis, you're positive. Wherever you're below the x-axis, you're negative. And for the blue one, it's wherever you're increasing, that's where you're positive. Wherever you're decreasing, that's where you're negative. And see, then we're increasing. Because I know these questions kind of seem like they're the same thing, right? Okay, here you're creating a sine line graph for the derivative. And here you're creating a sine line graph for the derivative, right? So they're kind of the same. But the purpose of the graph is different. For G prime, the graph represents G. And so you're making a sine line graph for the derivative of G. So that means you're concerned about whether the graph is increasing or decreasing, because increasing or decreasing is what determines whether or not G prime is positive or whether G prime is negative. Over here, F prime is what we're seeing. This graph is F prime. So That means the y values right here are the slopes of some other function f that we don't even know. We don't even know what f looks like, but we do know the slope numbers, because all these numbers on the y-axis, those numbers on the y-axis represent the slope of f, because this graph is f prime, which is why when you're trying to make the sine line graph here, you're asking the different question. You're asking, are you above or below the x-axis? Because that's how you know if the slope is positive or negative, because the y values are the slopes. When over here, this is g, and you know where g prime, where the slopes are positive or negative, based on whether or not the curve is increasing or decreasing. Does that kind of make sense? I mean, the graph is totally different for the pink or the blue, okay? Because it has a different name. It's either going to be g for the blue, or it's going to be f prime for the pink.